Okay, for the first part of today's workout called the right to bear arms, and that's bear spelled B-A-R-E, we've got a workout for quality. So this is more of a strength portion. This is great if you have some weighted equipment with you. Perhaps you have some dumbbells, you have a kettlebell or a barbell. So if you have those pieces of equipment, you could do this. You can also do this with a lot of other household objects too. If you have a weighted bag, anything that you could use, perhaps weighted grocery bags, for example, you could probably also use those as well. So we're gonna do 3 rounds, and again, this is for quality, for however many reps you're able to get. And we're gonna be doing 1-minute intervals, and the 1 minute allows you to really get as many reps as you're able to, depending on the weight that you have. So if you have something lighter, then you're gonna try to get more reps in that minute. If you have something heavier, then you may not get as many reps. And so it's gonna be varied for everybody. So we've got 1 minute of renegade rows. If you have 2 dumbbells that are light enough, you could do renegade rows, and I'll show you what those are. We've got 1 minute of seated press on the left side, and then 1 minute of seated press on the right side. Now I only have 1 very heavy dumbbell, so I'm not going to be able to do renegade row since I just have 1, and the dumbbell for me is too heavy to do for the seated presses. So I'm going to show you the option I have if you're in a similar situation where maybe you just have a really heavy kettlebell or a really heavy dumbbell and you're not sure what to do. So we'll just throw a bunch of options there, and then we'll get started on this workout. So here's my 1 heavy dumbbell. So usually a renegade row, you have 2 dumbbells and you are in a plank position. And I recommend having the feet a little bit wider. So instead of having them in your typical push-up stance, usually having them a bit wider gives you a little bit more leverage. And so you're having 2 dumbbells on the floor. Usually one hand is pressing down, and then the other one you are lifting up the elbow back as far as you can, trying to squeeze the back. And the goal here is not to try to open up your chest to the side. You really want to keep your chest squared off to the floor as best as possible. So you're going to lift one side and then lift the other side. So if you do not have a set of dumbbells to use, we're going to do a different row option. You can do a 1-arm row and then switch after every 20 seconds. And that's what I'm gonna do today, is I'm actually gonna do a kneeling or standing 1-arm row. So I'm going to come in a lunge position. My left leg is gonna be forward because I'm gonna have the right arm as the one holding the dumbbell, and I'm gonna brace my knee, brace my forearm onto that knee. I'm gonna have that dumbbell straight under, so if I drop my arm, it's right under the shoulder. And then from here, I'm gonna try to keep my back as firm and flat as possible. And then I'm gonna row, elbow up, bring it as far up to the armpit, and then return, focusing on keeping the core tight. You don't wanna jerk up the back here. So I'm gonna show you from a different angle. This is my left side, bracing against my thigh. Arm is straight down, right underneath the shoulder. Just looking neutrally forward, so not looking between the legs, just look about a foot or 2 in front. And we're gonna bring the elbow back, squeeze, and then thumb to the ribs. So you have that option if you have just 1 really heavy kettlebell, a really heavy dumbbell. You may also do a barbell row. So if you do happen to have an empty barbell with you, or you can also add on a little bit of weight to challenge yourself. So our bent over row, we're standing from a deadlift position to start. So you may need to deadlift your barbell to flat back up to your hips. Then we're gonna lower it, sending your hips back, kind of like a good morning style. Legs, you can have a little bit of bend to them, but you're aiming to get your back about 45-degree angle. Arms should be straight down, and then when you pull your elbows back, you're aiming right towards the ribs, just above the belly button. And I suggest holding at the top for about a 1/4 second if the weight is really light. If it's really heavy, then really bracing your core, pressing your feet into the floor, and trying to pull those elbows back. So that is the barbell option to do for the bent over rows. Next, let's talk about seated press. So if you have seated press with one dumbbell, I'm not gonna be able to press it, so let me use a can of paint here real quick. So let's say this is your dumbbell. So we're gonna do this either from a floor seated position, or you may also sit on a chair as well. So having a seated position kind of removes your legs from the whole equation. So we're gonna have our dumbbell propped up on our shoulder. Other arm, you can brace it on the floor or just have it hanging. And then keeping your sit bones grounded, keeping your chest tall and upright. We're driving bicep right next to the ear, and then back down. And then from a side position, making sure that you're not leaning back. You want to make sure you're staying tall and upright, driving that bicep next to the ear. If you have one heavy dumbbell or kettlebell, so I'm going to hold a dumbbell. This is going to be the tricky part, is getting the dumbbell up to the shoulder. So I'm going to grab both heads, and I'm going to hold it right at the shoulders. And then just like doing a strict press, I'm going to send my head through the window, press upwards and then down. You have to be super, super careful in controlling the weight with the two heads of the dumbbell. But this is an option that you can use if you are not able to strict press with one arm. You can also modify the workout as well if you have this option and just do 1 minute of strict press, but then do 2 minutes of the bent over row. So you're focusing on 1 minute on one side and 1 minute on the other side. And so that's actually going to be the option that I'm going to do today. So I'm going to be modifying the workout where instead of doing 1 minute of renegade rows and then 2 minutes of the seated press, I'm going to be doing 2 minutes of renegade of the dumbbell rows, 1 minute on each side, followed by 1 minute of the seated dumbbell press. All right, so if you're ready, let's actually go on to the next video where we'll go ahead and get started on this really short 9 minutes. It's just 9 minutes of work, continuous. There's no built-in rest, so you kind of build in the rest that you need to transition yourself. So we'll see you at the next video.